Hey everybody, it's Matt Camp again, your host of the Thought Leader Spotlight Series, head of partnerships at DealMachine. I'm excited today to introduce Russ and Joey with Wealth Without Wall Street. Really, with this Thought Leader Spotlight Series, we really try to shine a light on industry experts, on these thought leaders who they can hear their inspiring stories, can talk about their lessons that they've learned and how they see the world evolving today. So, like I mentioned today, we have Russ and Joey from Wealth Without Wall Street. Joey was in the mortgage business for 11 years. He had a lot of income, but no financial freedom. And over time, he really transitioned the last 6 years to teaching people about the process that he found on a path to financial freedom and really started Wealth Without Wall Street. The podcast was 3.5 years ago with Russ. They now have national coaches all over the country. It's a national organization. Russ had a interesting background too. Was a certified financial planner through the market crash, and then that led him to through his journey today, where he's really transitioned away from that investment world, and now has realized that, or the investment management world rather, and has now realized that it wasn't fulfilling what Wall Street had to offer. So they really talk about the 4 C's when it comes to your path to financial freedom and how you can really appreciate that as well in life. So welcome on, guys. I'm excited to chat today.
Yeah, we're glad to be here, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and can we start there? Maybe I know the story that I briefly laid out. I'd love to hear kind of a little bit more detail about your path and how you came to realize this whole framework of these 4 C's that I just mentioned.
Yeah, so I think the key words there were I had a lot of income, but not a lot of financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes into this whole Wall Street mindset that Russ and I share on our show a good bit is that, man, we've been taught that we need to be parted with our money because one, we're not smart enough to manage it ourselves. And two, we need to defer it until we're in our 60s or 70s and hope that the mountain of money that we've put away is enough to last us the rest of our life. And be honest, I was stuck in that. I was stuck putting money away in something I didn't understand, my 401k, and it was going all around up and down. And I didn't know why it was being affected. I didn't know. All I knew is I just keep my head down, keep working, and put money away. And I woke up, in 2008, 9, 10, wondering, okay, I'm making a lot more money, but I don't feel free. And what that meant was my time was getting taken away. My time with my family was getting taken away. I was working harder, but not getting any further. And enter Russ. He and I were friends actually at church first. And then he handed me this book one day and he's like, hey, I want to start sending you referrals, but if I'm going to do that, you have to understand my whole philosophy and how to do this. And so he handed me the book. He said, by the way, that's going to be $20.
That's right. I don't give away anything for free, man.
Like, dude, this is low budget, man. Like, I mean, you want me to read a book. Like, you shouldn't make me pay for it. But anyways, I did. And I'm grateful because that completely changed the trajectory of my finances, my family, and just the way I think about money. And fast forward 4 years later, I've been working with Russ and learning all these things, investing in myself, and like, wow, this is something that people need to know. Like, this is the opposite of what we were doing with our money. And I need to be able to teach people the same thing. I went home from a conference and told my wife, who was pregnant with our fourth daughter,
Wow.
hey, by the way, I feel like I need to do this full time and give up over $300,000 a year of income to start from scratch. And I don't know about you, Matt, but I wasn't necessarily expecting a whole lot of like positive vibes
That's a
from
tough
that.
conversation.
Like,
Yeah.
like maybe even a right hook or something. I'm not sure. But it was amazing. I knew it was the right thing when my wife looked at me and she was like, you absolutely should do this. And so I was like, okay, I'm sold. Russ, we're going to do this thing. Let's start this up. And that was 2014.
Yeah. You've got an amazing family too, supportive. So
Yeah,
like,
no doubt.
Yeah, I as a friend, actually, I wasn't that supportive of him. I was like, "What are you talking about, dude? Come on."
Are you sure you want
That
to
could
do
be a
you're
this?
bad
like, I don't
idea,
know.
right?
Yeah.
Well, because he was such an industry expert, he was looked
Mhm.
upon in that world as the go-to person, and to walk away from it. Uh, I was like, obviously seeing what was happening in his life. I knew that he was making decisions that he hadn't done before, but still, like I was sort of fearful for him, right? What if that doesn't work out? And I think really he saw like, if I could do it, like, and I could be coaching people, like anybody can do this thing. And clearly he could do it better. And I was leaving, as you said, kind of in the intro, I was leaving the world of being a money babysitter. I always give that example because really 99.99% of the people that are in the financial industry, financial advisors, financial planners, whatever you want to call them, they're really not actually managing people's money. They're just a pass through, right? And if anything, they're just watching it. And I give this example when I have 4 kids now as well. But when our second was had been born, my wife is a dentist, so she's at the dental office. I'm at the practice working, and so we were having to have like a babysitter for our 2 small ones at the house because they weren't old enough to go to daycare or anything like that. And I just remember one time my wife called me like in a frantic. It's like, Russ, we've got to fire this lady. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, I came home. You never believe this. I came home. The door is locked between the house and the garage. And I'm banging on the door because I can hear the baby Kate crying, screaming. And I'm like, what's going on? And I look and I see Alexandria, who's the 2-year-old, running around in a diaper, like circling the place. and the babysitter, Beth, is nowhere in sight. And finally, Alexandria, the 2-year-old, comes and opens the door. I come in there and I catch Beth asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That reminds me a lot of what I do in a day. That's basically what's happening in the financial industry as a whole, is that people are giving their money, their kids, to people, something that they love, that they worked hard for. And those people are literally just like, it's doing whatever it wants to, and you're kind of asleep at the wheel. And after the market crash in 08, and I realized that I didn't want to be in that position anymore. I like kind of being in control a little bit more than that. I took the opportunity to go to a conference. I met this guy. He was in his late 70s. He was an economist, and he's sharing this concept of becoming your own banker. And it was really teaching people how to have the financial golden rule, which is those who have the gold make the rules. And so instead of separating yourself from money, keeping it in your control. And that was the book I gave Joey, or I sold Joey, because I don't like to give away anything. I'm kind of a cheapskate that way. Plus, I knew he wouldn't have actually probably read it. I wouldn't have made him part with his $20. And it's just been a foundational tool in our approach to helping people have more passive income than they have monthly expenses.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I think you guys really, pre-call, you kind of outlined this whole clarity, control, course, and cherish framework. I just love how you make it simple and easy for people to kind of have this roadmap. Can you maybe go through each of those 4 quickly for me, and really speak to people who may or may not be aware of this mindset and need to shift how they're thinking about this?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, first of all, if you're watching this, you're already on the right first step, which is changing the way you think, because real estate and getting into real estate is a huge way to get to financial freedom. The thing I would challenge you with is our very first step is gaining clarity is so much more important than the vehicle by which you create passive income with, which is usually backwards. Like, most people start this financial freedom journey and they say, oh man, wholesaling houses, that's my way to financial freedom. Well, but they haven't really thought about what do they really want their life to look like, and what would that ideal day or work look like that they want, they're heading towards. So then they may be going down the wrong path and not knowing it. So we start with clarity. Who am I? What do I want? What does my day look like if I'm financially free? What would I be doing with my time? And those are the very first steps. The second would be control. So once I know what that day in life looked like, I now know how to look at my budget, how to look at paying down debt, and what order in which I should do it, how do taxes play into that, and then that becoming your own banker, like, where does my savings go? Like, my surplus every month has to go somewhere, and how do I optimize that? So those are like the 3 or 4 kind of undercurrents of the control step. And then I'll let Russ kind of pick up from there on charting a course and cherishing.
Yeah. Well, I think of, most of the time, the people who come and are listening to our podcast know that what they're after is in a better position than where they are. Right. But they've done enough stuff at that point to also know that they've tried some things and it hasn't worked, and they almost feel a little bit stuck. And so that's why we always kind of start with those first 2 places. getting clarity and having control. The fun stuff is always, hey, let's create passive income, right? I mean, we've read the Robert Kiyosaki books, and we know that we have to have more passive income than monthly expenses. And we're so excited to get that. And that's what we say our third step is, setting that course. And the first step that we put in that is actually having people analyze who they are as an individual. Because I'm kind of this extrovert. I have big ideas. I love running and owning businesses, but I don't like the actual detail work of it. And so I know for me, when I do the personality assessments, that I need someone that's going to help me follow through on those little things. I need to be partnering with someone who's much more detail oriented. And we have people, we actually partnered up with the company who does the DISC assessment. And we have a financial profile that they made just for our company. And we call it our investor DNA. And people go through that process and they learn who they are, so that when they start to evaluate the number of ideas, I mean, when we're talking about real estate, there's so many different ways that you can invest: short-term, long-term, mobile home investing, storage facility, land flipping, the Burr method, wholesaling. I mean, go on and on and on. There's so many ways that you can do it. You got to find out which one matches up with you. And so when we do that, we can really set the course and the trajectory to start getting cash flow coming in on a monthly basis. And the last step, which is the one that we're all striving for, is to really cherish that life that we've created. And that's one of those steps that I would say is still a journey for us, because we're still on that same path. Like, we've been moving through step 1, step 2, step 3, and we're now really evaluating hard. How do we cherish what we've created? How do we pass down these values and this knowledge to our kids? So we're actually interviewing our kids on our podcast. They're reading Rich Dad Poor Dad for Teens. And we're having them start to go through that mindset shift of, how can I afford things versus I can't afford things, and to help them see how cash flow can be created. Not that they won't pursue their passions of architecture or art or whatever that may be, nursing, right? But to let them know that there is also a way that they can create income on the side that can help them not lose the love of what they want to do from the fact that what they're doing doesn't provide what they want in life as far as monetary wise. And so we go through those 4 steps with our client base, and we're helping them see that journey. And we do it like really transparently, because we're an open book on our podcast, Matt. We're always sharing our own personal passive income report every month. And through that, we're showing, hey, here's where we are, that we're moving up. I mean, I think we went up almost 11% in our passive income last month, which is cool. But still, there was lots of failures in there. So we were sharing, like, man, I wish we would have not made that mistake.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think you make such a good point too, of again that third, like, setting a course is really the tactical execution of that is really what a lot of people talk about, and it's the fun part that they might skip to right away. But you need that clarity, that foundation to begin with. That I don't know if you have any other specific action steps right now that you think people listening to this should take to really understand that clarity and start to take control and start down this path, just because it is really easy to go right ahead and say, oh, I'm gonna burr this property without and just going towards that because they've learned that specific methodology but haven't properly built the foundation, the framework to understand why they're doing it to begin with.
Yeah, I would say one of the things we do in that clarity piece that really helps, that most people don't want to do, but when they go through the process, they really love that they did it, is that we have them do a time activity log, and really just take their day, break it down, and say, this is what I did from this start time to end time. And they just log that activity. And then they come back and they assess those activities as to being whether they were focused or wasted. And then they assess it even deeper to say, was that process, what was the reality? Was it congruent with what I really wanted in life, or was it dissonant to it? And we have them kind of put that, if you imagine, kind of like the old T-chart, and everything we're trying to get in that northeast quadrant, right? Being congruent and being focused, but also realizing when we have a starting point, and a lot of times we're doing things maybe we would consider wasted and dissonant to what we want. And what I love is that every day, if we measure, Dan Sullivan, one of the most famous business coaches out there, wrote a book called The Gap, and he talks about the time that sometimes people have this horizon goal, right? And they're always trying to achieve it, and they look, man, I'm not there, and so they can be discouraged, as opposed to looking backwards and saying, how far have I come? And that's what we do with the time activity log, is help people like just start charting that, and then weekly look back on it and see how many more of your activities are becoming more focused and congruent with what you want. And just those steps, because if we really want financial freedom, and the result of that is having more of your time back, then you need to start charting it. You need to start measuring it. And a lot of people miss that part because they're only focused on how much income do I have coming in from the activities I'm doing.
Yep. Yep.
And
The how, not the why. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another, like a real practical step for folks that are watching this, we'd love to just open up our community as like a free access for them. And you can download these courses that we're talking about. There's a budgeting course, there's a debt course, taxes, infinite banking, which that becoming your own banker. There's a whole course on that. And there's even going to be, now we're adding the clarity courses in there as we speak. So I'd love for folks, if they want to, they can go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/deal machine. And so it'll be specific to your audience, and folks can just join us in there. And by the way, there's a text kind of component of the app that you can just text Russ or I and just say, hey, I heard you guys on Deal Machine. And that way we'll know that we connected here.
Yeah, I love it. I was going to ask, I know I'd love to hear if you have any kind of parting wisdom here for newbies on top of that. But I wanted to know how people could get in touch with you and can, get involved in the community and learn more, and obviously check out the podcast too.
Yeah, we put all of our best resources in the community. Most of them are free. There's some that are paid for, but most of them are free. And it's really a great location to not be that solo person that's on your own, but to be surrounded by others that are learning and challenging themselves to get away from the water cooler, right? At work, where there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of people pulling the crabs back in the barrel saying, hey, you can't do this, or why would you want to do that? You're being surrounded by people saying, man, this is what I'm doing. What are you up to? Asking good questions. And we're all across the country. So chances are you have somebody in your backyard even that you could meet up with in person. So love to have you.
Awesome. I love it, guys. Thank you so much for the time today. And again, everybody check out, it's what's the domain again, the URL?
Yeah. wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/deal machine.
Perfect. Start there and then get involved in the community, and appreciate your guys' time.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for having us
us on.